Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Jay's Beer Review. The beer I'm doing today is the third and final beer that came to me in the, I guess you would say, beer trade from the gentleman who sent me the beer from New Zealand. And this really was kind of the reason for why he sent me beer. The other two beers were probably other beers that were good beers that he found that he wanted me to also try, so he didn't send just one beer all the way from New Zealand. But this was the beer he really wanted me to sample and review. And it is none other than Yeastie Boys Rex Attitude. Now again, Yeastie Boys Brewery, I guess that's what we're calling it, is a brewery out of Miramar, Wellington, New Zealand, maybe? I'm guessing. And it weighs in at 7% alcohol by volume. Now the reason why he wanted me to review this is not that he thought it was the greatest beer in the world, but because he thought it was very unique and different to beer he's used to, and it's because it's a peat smoked strong golden ale. Now, up until now, I've never had a beer that was brewed with peat. I'm not even sure I know what peat is. I think it's some sort of substance they use when they make whiskey. I'm guessing. I could probably do some more research on it and be more professional about it, but I really didn't want to because I wanted to kind of go into it without having an expectation or knowing about the beer. So I'm kind of guessing here. Ironically enough, or coincidental enough I should say, just this past weekend at Tap, New York, there was a new brewery called the Newburgh Brewery, and they had a peat smoked porter. And so I sampled it, and it was the first time I've ever had anything that's been peat smoked. And I found it very unique. And I actually kind of liked it. So I am very intrigued to see what this beer is going to be like. The biggest difference maybe between that and this is that this is a golden ale compared to a stout. So I am going into this with some interesting expectations, and we're going to see what this is. It does say right on here, the world's first beer made with 100% heavy peat distilled malt. And one last note, if you're a big fan of the Yeastie Boys, I believe one of their singers recently passed away with throat cancer or something of that nature. So the fact that they call this Yeastie Boys is maybe a bit of a tribute to that. So perfect timing. All right. Well, this beer has a really active head to it. I have a little under a half a bottle still pour in there, so I'll pour more into that as we go. I guess I didn't know what to expect as far as head, and with the shape of this glass, it probably didn't help matters either. But let's talk about what we have here. Okay, first off, the color is very deceiving to the aroma because the aroma coming off this bottle was extremely intense. We do have a golden colored beer here with, I would call this a pretty high carbonation and a nice fog to the beer, almost hazy or, not lava lamp or anything, but just like a hazy fog. Well over 4-fingered, fluffy white head with large and small bubbles combined there. Give you an idea. The aroma. I gotta be honest. The aroma is not a good aroma, but it's super interesting. If you ever been to a house fire and then it rains or whatever, like that, the next day of a house that caught on fire, like a burned house, it's kind of how the aroma is. So it's very smoky, but it's so I mean it is a peat smoked beer for Christ's sake, so I guess it's supposed to have that kind of smoky aroma, but it smells like burning house. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. And there's even like a hint of like melted vinyl, like if you ever had a record that like sat by a heater and melted. It's like a combination of that. Let's give it a try. I have to be honest, I'm a little scared. It's going to take some adjusting, that's for sure. Okay. Okay. The gentleman that sent this to me, he said that when he first tried this, he hated it, and then he kind of grown to love it. and I wonder if this is something that I would as well. That's a really interesting flavor. And what's interesting, and to add to that, I just had a peat smoked stout Tap Beer Fest this past weekend, and I kind of liked it. But you know what? I had like 12 beers at that point, so it's quite possible that my palate was altered and was able to handle that at that time, so it was a little bit more tolerable. And not to mention, it is a stout, so some of the dark malts kind of take away the characteristics of the smoke, and it kind of makes it a little easier. This is really intense with the the golden ale kind of appeal to it with all that heavy smoke. And I have to say that I'm struggling on just even like tiny little sips. I'm gonna try and drink this whole beer, and I don't want to say it's bad. I just have never tasted anything like this, so it's making it for a difficult and interesting beer. So I'll get back to you in a little while. All right, well, I'm back, and as you can see, I have pretty much an entire full beer here. That is the other half of the bottle I could not get in. And I was looking at Rate Beer as I was drinking this beer, because I had to get an idea of what people truly thought about this, because in my opinion, this beer is disgusting. But, is there a market out there for this kind of beer? Because they even talk about, they said it couldn't be done, that it would be undrinkable. I mean, hold on to that word for a moment. That we couldn't use more than 5% heavy peated malt in a beer, so we carefully considered their advice and went with 100% instead, right? So they, took all the, what everybody told them and said, we're going to do what we want anyway and make this beer. And there might be, a group of people who like that, Scottish style peated malt that would maybe enjoy this. And maybe there's a, just like any beer, even the first time you ever have a beer in your life, it takes a little getting used to, because you're not used to bitterness, that you would find in anything else. So, maybe there's a group of people out there like that, just like my friend who sent this to me, or my buddy who sent this to me, who said he hated it at first and grown to like it. But, I've had a lot of beer in my life, and a lot of really, really good beer, and I can't get into this. I mean, the smell is awful, and the taste is exactly how it smells, like Band-Aids or burnt house. And, the guy went through so much effort sending it to me that I wanted to try to do the best I could, but every sip was like stomach turning. So I'm sure there's people out there, but I gotta always go what I think. And this beer is indeed undrinkable, but in a funny way, like I think that they were going for obscure, so they achieved that, and kudos for that. But this ain't anything I'm picking up anytime soon ever again. So yeah, yikes. So Yeastie Boys, Rexy Attitude, undrinkable, but thanks for sending it anyway, and until next time, thanks for watching.